Evening, everybody. Welcome to the Leeds View podcast for this week, the last week of games before the final international break of this year, this calendar year. Thank Jesus. Before we head into the new year, move to wait till March till the next one upsets everybody. But in the meantime, we've got some wonderful football to discuss. A little look back at the game against Brighton. We won't spend too long talking about that. Apparently, we shouldn't be overanalyzing it anyway, so why bother? And then we look ahead to the Forest game. Paul, you're the definition of copium, mate. You know that.
I'm glad you said something to me then, because I was. Did you see how red I was going? Jesus Christ!
Yeah, yeah. Not a great day at the office, lads. Jerry, you didn't go down to it. Thank God for you, says you, because otherwise it'd be a hell of a waste of trip, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that was the only good thing about the day. I couldn't travel on the day, and my God, was I happy when I saw that. It's probably our worst. It is our worst performance of the season. I thought everything that could go wrong did go wrong. All the stuff that was good against West Ham that probably needed backing up wasn't. We talked about Brendan later. We just said how good he was, and I thought he was dreadful. If you bottle a tackle from me, that's bad. Giving the ball away, midfield was dreadful. 2 shots on goal, all in the same move, but as you say, don't over analyze it. And the stats are great. There was one stage we were 81% possession. I don't know. I think it was mostly in the centre circle and back, but it was there was no moment. Not used to sitting on the couch watching it, and there was no moment that I ever thought about jumping off the couch. The only thing I thought about was going to make a coffee and pet the dog. That was it, really. That was the highlight of the game.
You wouldn't have missed much, Jerry, if you had it. I was the same, sitting here doing the watch along, and you're like, please do something. And I actually thought, funnily enough, the way we kind of set up in the first 10 minutes wasn't actually bad. I thought we limited them to space. I thought we made it difficult for them to play outside their half. There was a lot of them passing left to right between their 2 centre backs, but then they scored, and then you realise that they were just kind of playing with Leeds a little bit and trying to draw Leeds out by keeping the ball and trying to suck us towards them, then into the likes of Minte, Georgie and that, and try and do some damage for us. But Paul, it should be pointed out, Daniel Farke said don't overanalyze the game too much. I'm glad that everybody across the spectrum has, because they were missing 7 first-team players. They were 1 point ahead of Leeds. Outside the fact that they will be a top 10 likely side this season, or in and around that box, and also knowing that we didn't expect to get a huge amount, but we were expecting some form of a performance. And I don't think we want to wave the white flag going into away games just because these are Daniel Farke bingo card established sides. Every time Daniel says established in a press conference, take a shot. You've got to go out and at least put up a fight. And if I looked at Burnley this week as well, and I don't think Burnley have got particularly good team, but my Jesus, they're fighting for things. 7 missed players, point ahead of us, look like night and day, the 2 sides. What was your thoughts on
it? Abject performance. No 2 ways about it. Where it depends on who you might speculate that's on. Is that on Farke? Is it on the team? Is there a confidence issue? Is there a training issue? So is it part of his training staff that seems to be the problem? I don't know what it is, but there has been such a drop-off. And it was so evident at the weekend against Brighton. Like you say, it's the thing that nobody seems to be mentioning. They had 7 first-team players out. And again, for the people in the back, they had 7 first-team players out.
I would like to address one thing, because I've seen this popping up. Clem, no offense to your comment, it's a worthwhile thing to discuss, and it's a good discussion point. It's not Daniel Farke's fault, it's the squad fault. I find that a difficult thing to swallow, though, because when we get a good result against the side, it's Daniel Farke who's got that result from the squad. But when we lose a game, the squad's not good enough and the board's not good enough. And Daniel Farke seems to be in this middle ground where all the positive stuff is there, but you can't criticize the manager. And again, I've said before, and we've talked about on this podcast about a spectrum when it comes to criticizing the manager. Daniel Farke absolutely has criticism in this performance, because I've now watched back Everton and Newcastle again. I've done some content for the weekend's game, and Leeds set up completely differently against Newcastle, and Leeds went to highlight their strengths and hide their weaknesses in that game effectively, and it worked very well. And against Brighton, we set up to expose every single one of our weaknesses by playing out from the back. So this thing about Daniel Farke is not his fault. Of course, it's partly his fault. It's the players' fault as well. It absolutely is. The players have got to work harder. They've got to battle more. They've got to track their runners, and they've got to mark. The amount of ball watching in the game was incredible. But Daniel Farke still picks that 11 players. You know, and you can't be great one week and then crap the next week, and the manager be brilliant one week and then the players be at fault the following week and they're not good enough. There's culpability across the spectrum. We spoke about that, Paul, a couple of weeks ago here as well. Of board are culpable for not finishing, getting the team together. The players are culpable for not doing enough work in certain games. And the manager's culpable for not getting his tactics right in certain matches and not getting a motivated performance out of these players. So it's amazing how new managers can go into clubs that are below us and then worse runs of form than us. And all of a sudden, their fortunes can turn around like that. But we can't talk about Daniel Farke or else we're Farke out. And we can't talk about Daniel Farke because the squad's not good enough. And I don't accept that. Every single one of them across the board, owners, players, manager, all of them have criticism that they need to be looking at over the last few matches.
Yeah, no, of course they do. It is funny that you do get jumped on for criticising. Excuse me, for criticising certain things. We all know that we haven't got the best squad in the league. We know that. That's a fact. None of us expected us to be up at the top of the league. None of us did. We're in and about where we need to be. That's absolutely fine. Can we critique the performance? Yeah. Can we critique what we think the manager's doing? Absolutely, yes, because
100%.
If we want to be honest about it, we should have been walking away with 3 points against Bournemouth, and we should have been walking away with a point against Fulham, minimum. So we should
be losing to Burnley.
We shouldn't be, but then we shouldn't be losing to Burnley, but that's just a Leeds thing. That was always bound to happen.
But a better side, we've better players than Burnley.
Yeah. Yeah, we have. But see, these are the other things that you need to look at in and around it. I think there's a coaching issue there. I think there is a recruitment issue, and this isn't what's gone on with Daniel Farke and not getting the attackers and everything. When you look at it, you spoke about it today in your news video, Jer, that they're looking at bringing back potentially.
Ramazani.
Wow, his name's gone out of my head.
Ramazani.
Wow, that was when your brain just goes. Yeah, pretty much like what the Leeds played at the weekend. They're looking at bringing Ramazani back. Now, you said that you think he'll go out again if he does come back. That'll go out to potentially go out championship-wise, maybe, so they can keep a closer eye on him. But for me, and you said it, the only reason that they let Ramazani go is because they thought they were getting Norte in.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. But we'd already agreed to let him go. And I'm not sitting here going that Ramazani's the answer. I know Ramazani's not the answer, but he would give an option within the squad and give a little bit of potential. So for me, that's a recruitment problem where they've absolutely ballsed up there slightly, where something's gone wrong. I think there's a training issue because I don't know what's going on. And there's also a player issue in terms of their being able to output for a full 90 minutes. I talked about in a video that I did where I mentioned the number of minutes that the Brighton players played in their game. Practically all of them were over 80 minutes. Yeah. Their 10 main outfield players were over 80 minutes, every single one.
And most of them played 70 minutes against Arsenal in the Cup on the Wednesday or Tuesday, and they had 7 players out.
Correct. And they managed to stay switched on, work to a game plan, and do way better than us. And it's all right sitting there going, well, we don't expect to win against teams like this, and they are a top 10. I'm getting a bit bored of hearing that, if I'm being completely honest.
They are, but do something.
And I understand that they are, but it's not. We're Leeds United. We're just happy to make up the numbers. That annoys me. That's annoying me now. We earn the right to be in this league. We are better than how we have been playing. I've seen somebody mention it with regards to Sunderland. The easy way to explain Sunderland, and we need to stop talking about Sunderland, let them get on with whatever it is that they're doing. We didn't have the money to spend in the summer. We had
I think the point that Jim was making was we were so far ahead of them, and they only spent a little bit more than us, and they're so far ahead of us. Like that gap that they've managed to shoot past that gulf is huge.
Yeah. How much did they spend on attackers?
Well, we spend them on defenders, and we're conceding goals every week.
Correct, but this is my point. Where they're getting it right is within midfield and the attack side of things. Sunderland didn't have the same PSR restraints that we did, which meant that they could stretch themselves a little bit further, and they're also running fast and loose with the PSR side of things because they know the importance of staying in this league, so they're taking a risk with it. We weren't prepared to take that risk, and that's where I come back to the recruitment side of things. But Farke needs to be doing something different with the squad against, like, with things against. They just need to show that they care. It didn't look like they cared. It looked like they thought, oh, well, these guys have got the beating of us, so we'll just kind of... And I can't accept that. That's the thing that I can't accept. And when I start seeing stuff like that, I can't accept that level of not putting in a performance. It winds me up completely. And people can say I'm overreacting. That's absolutely fine. This is my opinion from what I've seen eye test, my own eye test. And it's my opinion that I've formed from it. That is what that was at the weekend, was an abomination because the effort wasn't there and it wound me up.
Yeah, it's a point. And just a real quick shout out to Rad Music. I was asked and lucky enough to go on Rad Music's YouTube channel during the week to talk about the soundtrack of your life. So it was, if you want to check that out, it's over on Rad Music's channel. Go give it a shout as well. It was very nice to be asked onto that channel. But Jerry, I suppose the point is this. Yeah. The point is that we're not looking and not expecting to outplay teams in this division. We're not expecting to win every game. In fact, the opposite. We're expecting to lose more games than we actually win. But we are expecting the team to mark players, track runners, run around a bit, throw a few tackles in, and maybe create the odd shot and be a little bit more difficult to play against, which we did do at the start of the season and seems to have gone out of the team. And that's the minimum requirement that we should be allowed to expect from our team. I think we should be allowed to be a little bit upset if we don't get that alone from the team outside of the other stuff, which we're not expecting to see.
Yeah, I saw you on that music thing. Barry Manilow and Daniel O'Donnell. I was very impressed that they were the big favourites. Anyway, well, yeah, you're right. My thought was, right, if we're set up to sit in, if you like, don't just sit in and watch them come at you. Go and kick a few. I know it's a bit basic, but that Van Hecken guy, he just waltzed around, played wherever he wanted. There was nobody leaving it on him, and he knew he had the free run. And our players just seem to be static. As Paul says, I don't know if it's the effort or the tactics or whatever, but we never laid a glove on them. And after a few minutes, you thought, yeah, they've done us here. Welbeck had got in earlier before, and they were just getting those gaps were behind us. And I remember when we played Fulham, as you said, we were good. I mean, Newcastle exceptional. And it just seems to Wolves. And I think at Burnley we could see the signs there. There's too many players ball watching, and I think it's been mentioned on the list, and we've talked about. I think Ampadu is miles off it at the moment. He's ball watched a goal in the last 3 games, and maybe more. And I think I can't remember if it was the second or third goal, but the guy just nipped in front, and he's just walking back. And I think Ampadu's been brilliant, and he is still a great player. But sometimes you need a kick in the arse, and I think possibly he's one. And for the defence, I mean, our 2 fullbacks had probably their worst games for Leeds, I think, especially Bogle, they're real bad. But they've got enough in the tank, and I've got confidence in them. I feel for Joe Rodon a bit because they're not protected. They're sort of being pulled that way and pulled that way. And the ball gets in behind, and it leaves gaps. They have to go and attack it. And then somebody strolls in. All 3 goals, tap-ins in the 6-yard box. That's criminal, really is. And I've watched the other teams this weekend, and I thought, we looked the worst at the weekend. Sunderland, we can talk about Sunderland all day. They've spent the money, and that doesn't always guarantee you. But you looked at the game against Chelsea a few weeks ago. Yeah, they rode their luck a bit, but they had loads of chances, and they were going forward. And you got to look at manager and tactics and motivation. And for our team at the moment, we just looked championship. That looked like a cup tie, a mid-table championship team going to a Premier League team and getting turned over. And that's not good enough. And I've officially set off I'm a bit concerned klaxon. I'd been okay up until that, but I went, yeah, that's it. Not quite as bad as that, but it's a bit concerned. I don't know what a bit concerned's like. And yeah, I'm worried. And I think this game coming up is... I was speaking to the Forest fans today. I said, this is massive for both of us for our season, which way it goes. Because at the way it's looking, I think it's a 3 from 4. I think Forest will be okay. It's us, Burnley, Wolves, and West Ham, and even West Ham. That was a shock result. We could have done with that the other day at Newcastle. So we really he's got to change something. We can't go out and set up like that again. We spoke about it a few weeks ago. We said 3-5-2. Get Pirro in there because Calvert-Lewin, a bit of a stick. He's lost up there. If he gets the ball, there's nobody there. There's nobody near him. The service is dreadful. There was one cross come in which he arrived late, and there was nothing else. And he's done a job as a centre forward. He's holding up the ball. He's winning headers, everything else, and there's nobody backing him up. Okafor has probably showed the only flashes of anybody I saw, really. Got in behind him a couple of times. But again, nobody arriving, and our midfield was just well off it. And that's, if the midfield's off it, our defence is affected and there's nothing in attack. What do you think of the goalkeeper, though? I thought the keeper was okay. I can't blame him. I suppose the ball out and the footwork at the back is a bit of a worry. We shouldn't be doing that. Apparently, he's got new hair as well, which is really good. That's a great tactical move. But he pulled off 2 great saves, and I had no chance with the goals. I couldn't really blame him for that. So he looked more agile as we go on. So I was okay with him.
Yeah, I think he came in for criticism again because he's the new goalkeeper. But I mean, someone said he conceded 4 goals in the last 2 games. How many goals did Carl Darlow concede in the games before that? We're shipping goals in full stop. I don't think you can point a finger at one player. I think only for a couple of good saves. It's interesting, Paul, and actually I'll just throw this up real quick and give you some insight about us pressing from the front. It's an interesting point. I've said it all season. Leeds are better when they press from the front. We're doing the breakdown video this week on Saturday before the game against Nottingham Forest. And I've done it a little bit differently. If you're interested in this, it's to show you that Leeds have set up differently this season and how effective it was playing that long direct ball to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and getting players around him. And then Leeds being a defence being higher coming out from the back, as well as Lucas Perry's kickouts being far more accurate when they're long as opposed to the ones that they're short. So why ask him to play short balls when we're under pressure there all the time? The players can't play out. But Paul, you did a bit of deep diving on Lucas Perry and the statistics. I'll get it up on screen and just show you some of the ratings this week, because there were some wild takes. I was listening to Don't Go to Bed Just Yet, and Curly Wand was saying that he touched on Longstaff was running in midfield before he went off. I touched on Longstaff should have come off at halftime. I thought Elton was probably a better midfield, but these are the ratings that came in from the Premier League at the weekend. Lucas Perry probably one of Leeds' best ratings. Actually, he was Leeds' best rated player. And that includes all the algorithm data included in passes. But you, as I say, you did a bit more deep diving into the statistics. I know we don't like talking about them. People don't want to talk about them, but Daniel Farke does want to talk about them. So if he's going to talk about them, we need to talk about them a bit more. Leeds had 50% possession. That's what he said. We had the same amount of passes. I wonder how many of our passes were between our 2 centre-backs versus theirs. And what did you see when you looked at that data?
Well, from what I could see with the data, and I'm going to be very careful how I word this because I always end up getting end up using the incorrect words. The biggest
don't use penetration.
I know, or deep. The biggest come away from it was when you look at the momentum graph, and we might have had 50% possession and it might have been 50-50. When you look at the momentum shows you the how much you go into the opposition half. That's what it actually shows you. And when you look at the momentum graph, none of that was the case for us in terms of the momentum, bar one moment in the first half. The rest of the time, we were never foraging into Brighton's half at all. Yet when you look at Brighton, the difference that they did with their possession was how much they managed to gain on us in terms of space. I mentioned it in my video. There's 5 things that you look for when within a game of football. If you really want to simplify it, it's getting the ball, accurate passes out, advancing the team, creating opportunities, scoring goals. They're the 5 things that you want to do. Obviously, 6th thing is to win the game as well. But from a defensive point of view, 12 tackles we had in defence. They had 24 interceptions. We made 6 interceptions, 2 blocks. We had 19 clearances in defence. And Perry makes 4 saves as well. Had it not been for Perry, to me, that said it would have been potentially 7-0. Potentially. I know it probably wouldn't have been, but potentially 7-0. Also, within those 19 clearances, it doesn't tell you exactly, but it doesn't say how much of that was also Perry as well coming in. So Perry had a very, very good game, yet still let in 3 goals. What that tells me from a statistical point of view, and instead of just taking the headline from it and looking down into a little bit deeper, is okay, so the midfield's clearly not doing its job properly. The defence is clearly not doing its job properly. Okay, what else does that tell me? There's ball watching. People letting stuff just run by them. People not picking up the men correctly. Not doing everything that they accurately need to do. I mean, we talked about shots wise and everything. The 3 goals that Brighton score, All three of them are within 5 yards of each other. All three of them are within 5 yards of each other. But you look at the players and their ratings on that screen, that tells me we were massively, massively outplayed, regardless of what the statistics say and that the metrics are good. We were outplayed. Too many players performed poorly in that game overall. It's just, it's factual. The statistics are great for either copium, making yourself feel better. But what people sometimes don't do is they don't underline or they don't look into a little bit more depth. Well, what does that actually mean? What does that tell me? Their expected XG, Brighton's expected XG was 4.41. Ours was 0.5.
Yeah. This is the third goal.
Yeah.
And that's the goal scorer. There's Ethan Ampadu. There's the goal scorer. And then people will talk about Gabby Gumbunson, and that's Minty. That's the guy he's marking as the game moves on. Bial does his job as a centre half, covers that position. He locks on to Minte, but he's left completely free. That was the second goal. Free man again. I mean, actually, he's not even in the box there. Yeah, that's this play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Leeds players. No one marks him. You go back to the second goal. I'll try and find it here. It comes from here. So there's the run. There's Ampadu. There's Bial. It runs through. He's on the blind side of Bial. Bial has to press the space. Ethan Ampadu can see that. Don't track it. Runs in. Tap in. So like we are literally, and it's so strange to say it out loud because it's basics of football, Jerry. And you said championshipy. There's so much ball watching. My nephew is currently playing under nines football, and he's been doing coaching the last couple of weeks on not following the ball all the time and making sure you know where your man is. And he's 9. And here we're talking about professional footballers and the amount of ball watching in the last couple of weeks. We pointed it out against West Ham as well, where everyone's looking at the ball and Fernandes runs behind them and gets a little header on it. Luckily, we get away with it. You go back to the Arsenal game, the 2 corners there. Every single Leeds player is lined up on the line. They're all watching the corner. All the Arsenal players are behind them. They get a free run. They score twice. So there is an issue there that is forming a pattern of players. Now, that is a player responsibility, and the players have to step up and take responsibility. But if players are not taking that responsibility, Jerry, then it falls on the manager to take them out of the game.
Yeah, as you say, it is basics. And the Arsenal game, it did remind me, as you say, when they waltzed in for a couple of the goals, we had enough men, but not getting the tackles in. And I don't know why we're so passive, because the whole point in the recruitment this year was to get a load of big bastards in and be more physical. And they are. Yeah, that's the technical term for them. They are. But we're being waltzed around a bit, and that's the midfield. I mean, Stack we thought was someone who would be in there controlling midfield. He fell off. He had a good chance, but yeah, it's got to be better. As I say, if you're sitting in and you're defending and you're looking to break, you've got to go out and take a few prisoners and take a few yellow cards. And I said I thought that Van Hecken should have at least should have been had a couple of challenges, but he just controlled it. And Lewis won't have an easier game as a defender. And they had us sussed very quickly, and I think we've seen in the last 3 games, even that last goal against West Ham, even though we controlled it, but again we sat back against West Ham, and it is frustrating. Have we not got the stamina to keep going, or is it tactically are we being held back? And as you say, I think it's the responsibility of players and manager, and we can't go out with the same team against Forest or the same tactics, play one up front, and there's got to be changes. And that if we continue this route, we'll be down by March. There's no doubt about it. It has to change. I'm not saying the manager changes, but he's got to. He must say. I know he has to come out afterwards and say, he can't throw him under the bus or anything. But I think he did wind a few people up by saying, "Don't look at the overanalyze," because we could see what was happening. It was dead obvious that we weren't competing in that game. And when it went 3-0, I thought we're in trouble here. This could be 5 or 6 because we were just leaking. And I'm not sure where we change it in the squad. How we change it, what players will come in, how we do. I mean, we're hoping Willie will come back. We're talking about Ramzani coming back in January. He's not necessarily the answer. You always look at the players that aren't playing who become better the longer they don't play. And
play the kids.
but I think there's got to be a change, and try two up front. Try Perro in there. Off the big man. I know it's basic. Yeah, big man, small man up front, but he's got to have something to feed off.
Can I show you something, Jerry, and get your thoughts on this? This is part of the video that's going out on Saturday in the breakdown, just to give you a little bit of a sample. But is it why we're talking about and how Brighton were let come out from their kickouts is fresh in everyone's mind. This was how Leeds set up against Everton for their kickouts on the first game of the season. That's an Everton kickout. And look how many Leeds players are on the edge of their box. And every single one of their kickouts had to be forced long. They tried to pass the short and they ended up giving it back to Leeds. The next one that I want to show is this was Leeds kickouts against Newcastle. Look where the Leeds defence sets up. And look where all the Leeds players are for the goal kick from Lucas Perry. We won that one, by the way. We won the flick on and we won the second ball. This was Leeds kickouts set. There it is there. See all the players there, all nice and compact, all of the pitch. Dominic, it's not Calvert-Lewin, it's Lucas Mecha, but look how tight the wingers are to him there. Look how close they are. Look how close the three midfielders are. This was Leeds kickouts against Brighton. We have two players in our own box. Biel passes the ball to Perry. They're pressed by 3 or 4 players, and then we end up clipping the ball into this area over here, and we can't get out. And if you look at this, that's how it looks on a tactics board against Newcastle. That's how it looked against Brighton.
Board out.
Yeah.
There's the two, side by side.
Yeah.
I'd like your thoughts on that, Jerry, because you made a really good point about saying that. Just what your initial thoughts are looking at that.
Yeah. Well, I remember the Newcastle, and I'm thinking, yes, just send it long a couple of times, because the playing about at the back it's not good for me nerves. It never is, because there's a mistake. It's very minute. How you can the mistakes that can be made on that. You have to be accurate. Ampadu got caught out earlier, and I think in this, if our strength is that we got physical players, let's send it long, more of that. And as you say, the players are closer together. So Calvert-Lewin wins a header. What's the point if there's no one nearby? And if there's some teams like a team like Brighton, are you going to beat the press from them? They're buzzing around the whole time, and you think maybe today is not the day. Let's
one of the best pressing
sides
sides in the division. Them and Arsenal.
Yeah, and you think, are we really doing our homework? Because Brighton definitely did their homework on us, and you could see how they were concentrating on getting that ball around us, around the back, and our full backs had their poorest games on the basis of that. So I would like to. We said 3-5-2. Just do something different. Change it, because this is not working at the moment. There's two away games where we've had a good old moan, and rightly so. We've been very disappointed. Lack of shots on goal. I know we've more attacking against Burnley, but we didn't really trouble them. I mean, how many saves did the Brighton and the Burnley keepers make in the last 2 games?
Burnley
Very
was 4. Brighton was
4. One in the same move, 2 in the same move against Brighton. Otherwise, he had nothing else to do. How many corners did we have as well? It was our set pieces were dreadful.
7.
I mean, Sean Longstaff's been excellent, Joe. I don't know whether there was a plan because they'd got Duncan Van Hecken that we were going to play it short, but it's never worked for us. Just get it in there. You got Joe Rowe on a bit of a roll. Just get the ball in there. Even if we're not playing well, you got to compete in that. When the set pieces, none of them troubled them at all, and more than not, they broke away from them and were on the attack. So all of them out the window. There's nothing good I can think about. Other than not traveling. That's the only positive I can get out of this game.
I know, yeah. Sitting at home, you're you were warm and not getting rained on. Yeah. We'll move on to the Forest game. Before that, Arj saying Biel was too slow. He may very well be, but his speed was nothing to do with any of the goals that Leeds conceded in any way, shape, or in fact, he managed to out-sprint Gomez at one point. So if he is too slow, it didn't cause us any problems and it didn't affect how Leeds played. So I'm not really sure why that's being highlighted. It was highlighted when he was a transfer target, but didn't have any impact on any of the Leeds goals. But Paul, we'll move ahead and talk about Nottingham Forest. What do we do against Nottingham Forest? What does Daniel Farke have to do against that game? Because we talked about those 4 games when we were reviewing the 4 blocks at the start of this month. And in that 4 blocks, we said 5 points is decent, 7 is brilliant, anything less than 5 is poor. You could be having a wobble after the international break. Currently sitting on 3. The Burnley game being the outlier as the one that really did kind of shock everybody a little bit, especially the scoreline. But now Nottingham Forest, I'm not saying it's a must win, but you need to get something out of that game away from home. Our Daniel Farke's away record's not great across Gladbach, Gladbach, Norwich, and Leeds, across all of his time at Leeds. His away record's not great. This is the last game before the international break. We don't win games after international breaks. The first game after that, we usually write that one off. We've only ever won 4 of those. So something needs to be done differently in this game against Nottingham Forest, because Sean Dyche has them set up a little bit differently. Now, they're not creating a massive amount of chances. They are scoring the odd goal, but they're being more effective. But they've definitely become harder to play against.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do going into that game?
Not lose. Set up so we're difficult to break down. We need to be on it from the start. We need to be all over them from the start. We need to be pressing on them like we did against Newcastle, like we did against Everton. He's not going to change the system. Doesn't matter how much we all sit here and pontificate about it and give the merits and the reasons why something might change or something might be a little bit better. He needs to, for me, he needs to look at, I mean, if you look at what the Forest Man U game, obviously Man U get a goal in the dying embers of that game to make it 2-2. Now, when you actually look at that game, Forest were all over Man U. Were all over Man U in that game. So Man U were lucky to come away with a draw from that. We have to nullify them. We have to be solid. Everybody has to be on it. There can't be any switching off. There can't be any just watching the game kind of pass them by. I would like to see Dan James start. I've had enough of Aronson now. I understand, people like him and stuff and things like that. It's too inconsistent. I'd like to see Dan James start. I've got no issues with Okafor. I'd like to see our 2 wide attacking players come in a little bit more, so invert it a little bit more. But I just worry that we're going to see the same thing that we saw against Brighton. For me, bare minimum out of this game, it has to be a draw. Bare minimum, it has to be a draw. But I mean, it's Leeds United, isn't it? We could go and get a result and get 3 points, and we're all sat here singing Barker's praises again. And what a great thing it is! It's that consistently inconsistent thing that we seem to be doing. If I'm Farker, I'm bollocking every single one of those players in training this week. I'm having not in front of everybody. I'm taking people to one side individually and having conversations with them to make sure that they know, listen, you aren't guaranteed to start here. I need you on it from the very, very start. I don't know, because I don't know what to expect is the honest ease, and is my honest thought process. It's where I'm at the moment. I don't know what to expect. We'll know what kind of game we're going to get by the players that he puts out. That's probably, for me, the fairest assumption. If he goes with Stack, Longstaff, and Ampadu in the middle of midfield, he's going for a more solid midfield. If he puts Tanaka in, then he's probably wanting a little bit more devilment into the midfield. DCL probably won't be starting because of the thigh problem.
Paul. Sorry to cut you off. I'm just watching the chat here coming on. How does Joel Pirro deserve a start? What does Joel Pirro started against Everton, barely got a kick, was taken off after an hour. He was awful against Arsenal. He doesn't play as a single man striker. He's never been good in a single man striker. We spent 2 years talking about the fact that he can't play up front on his own, but now all of a sudden he deserves a start in the Premier League as a sole striker in a team that are not currently supporting the only striker that we've got up there. I'm mind-boggling. Sorry, go on.
No, I agree with you.
Can't get my head around that one. It's when things are going bad, all of a sudden names start getting thrown out there. Like, play the kids.
Yeah, he's not a number 9. If you put Pirro up front, then you have somebody that can't head a ball, can't jump to head a ball, isn't
can't
physical
hold it up.
enough. Yeah, he isn't physical enough to do that role. He's better at the false 9. We've had that conversation 1,001 times. But
I'd love to see him in a 2. I'd love to see him in a 2. I think he'd be phenomenal in a 2, but we're not going to play a 2.
He'd be unreal in a 2. He'd be absolutely unreal in a 2. But it's like I said, we'll know what he's kind of thinking. He's going to play 4-3-3. We know he's going to play 4-3-3. If he doesn't play 4-3-3, I would say that somebody's had a word with him because something's not quite right. I mean, is it the fact that the coaching staff aren't vocal enough towards him to say, look, we need to change this up a little bit? What if we tried to do this? What if we tried to do that? And stop being so singular with it. It's just, everything was really positive a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not positive now. I'm over the halfway mark on my Farker ladder, and I don't like being there. I don't want him sacked because I think he can turn this around, absolutely. But if he loses against Forest, it is going to be horrific for the entire international break. But I just want us to have fight and determination. I want us to be strong. I want us to press from the front, please, ladies and gentlemen. We're all good enough to do it. Press from the front in that game. That's what I want to see us do.
Jerry, we talked about before we went live with this and this is the Farke in, Farke out position. I wish people would move into the middle of that and have a conversation about the tactics rather than going to the extreme ends of it, because sacking a manager causes turmoil at a club. It causes huge unrest behind the scenes. You've got time periods to wait to see if they come in. Nottingham Forest have shown this year that doesn't always work. When you do, the year we got relegated, we did the same thing. It didn't work. The path of least resistance is the manager fixes it, gets it right, and we move forward. That's the ideal scenario here. And that's what I think most people want to see. You've got to see something different against Nottingham Forest. We can't go out there with the same 11. Now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's likely to be out of that game. So Lucas Metch will come in. Very similar profile of player. So you're still going to play the same way, essentially. You want to see something different on this, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I mean, you're allowed to criticise the manager, and we've had more games that we've been really happy with, or about half and half now. We talk about the Newcastle game and the Everton game, and you thought, yeah, we've changed it. We were more solid, and because we've moved up, it's not going to be as outrageous as last year. But we know that's the case. But last couple of away games, it's not looked good. And as you say, if we lose on Sunday, it will be toxic. And part of you thinks, well, when Jesse was in charge and he got that win at Liverpool and Bournemouth, we held on to him too long. And then he's going to have an horrendous run of games. Sometimes these games can turn out strange. So it's from the social media side and the pressure, and the 49ers will be looking at this as well. This is the big game. I would love to see loads of changes. I expect there won't be. I expect Stack might come in for Tanaka. If Nemecha for Calvert-Lewin, if he's not fully fit. That's the only things I could say. I would drop Brendan. I would even think of dropping Ampadu. We talk about 3-5-2, and that's with Pirro maybe off the striker. Maybe that's how it works. That won't happen. But I think we got Brendan he was brilliant against West Ham. He's had some good moments, but I don't think he's a starter, and I haven't for a long time. And he's not physical enough. He loses the ball, and he's too busy without doing it. And so what I want to see and what will happen will be two different things. But even if we do start the same 5-4, or what is it, 5-4-1 or whatever, I can never remember. But yeah, the three midfielders, the wingers, and the fourth at the back. Yeah, we've got to be better. We got to, as Paul says, we've got to be straight in their faces. But they looked better team under Dyche than they were all over the place under Ange, and against Man U the other day. They were unlucky. They were unlucky with the ball. That we got to be at it at the off. And the team won't be that much different except for injuries, and maybe a tweak with Tanaka and Stack. But they've got to be better. It's got to be better, and they've got to be switched on.
Yeah, Jerry. Before you wrap up, this is a good point. Daniel Farke seems pretty good at learning and developing throughout the season. We've seen that after 10 games most seasons, teams start to pick up and move. The teams have a slow start to every season with every club, but they do pick up after a period of time. Better to stick with him. He also has a knack of being able to dig out a result when he absolutely needs one. And a couple of times this season, usually just before the international breaks this year, he's managed to do that. My personal feeling is he will dig a result out in this game, and he'll get something out of this match. Do you have the same vibe or same feeling? And again, do you feel like he will be learning these lessons moving forward?
I hope he does. I don't know how I feel. I was feeling good going into the Brighton game, so that doesn't tell us anything. If we beat Forest on Sunday, the whole narrative changes again. Brendan scores a goal and we win 2-0, and the fullbacks have been brilliant, and Ampadu's kicking everybody up in the air. Everything's fine. We're not a million miles off it.
No.
That's the whole thing. It's not like we're wolves cut adrift. We've had enough good performances this season to see this team's got it in them, but they've just gone off it a bit, and we don't want 2 weeks of mulling this over. And I think if we get a win out of this, I think this could be such a big bearing on our season and the gap with the bottom three as well. I'm not sure who Burnley and West Ham are playing at the weekend, but if we can get a result and they don't, and Forest as well would lose obviously those points. Massive. We lose this game, I think it's not going to be pretty, and there'll be a lot of analysis and there'll be a lot of calls for Farke. And I think, and the question will be, well, who do you get in? There's no who's out there.
There's always somebody. How many hundreds of managers are working in world football right now where a big bag of cash would change their minds?
Oh, there'll be plenty that would want it, but who's good enough? So, but Daniel, he's got to really dig in this week, and I think he's not going to come out all guns blazing and saying that was absolute garbage. They were rubbish. He's got to dampen down the fires, and hopefully he said it in the dressing room. I'm sure he did. I wouldn't want an angry Daniel Farke in my face. He's a hard looking bloke, really is.
Well, I think he has it in to be.
My other half tells me, but anyway.
It's Bob. As long as he keeps the Bob out. Wrap up in a sec. I have to jump off to another thing I have to do. But Andy's just saying Farke getting better after 10 matches, like saying Melly. The statistics in Daniel Farke's history shows that all of his sides do start slowly, and after 10 games start to go that way. So there's some logic to it, but different teams, different divisions.
There it is. Put Melia back in. There we go.
Put Mez back and go. Yeah. Let's forget the histories of players. Get Patrick Bamford as well, who can't get a club in Coventry City, who was training that won't even offer him a contract, but he's the answer. Paul, give me a score prediction for the weekend.
1-0 Forest. Genuine.
1-0 Forest. Barry, what do you think?
That's how I feel.
I can never bet against them. Head says 1-1. Heart says 3-0. But my heart's not so good at the moment. No. We just got to win. I'm in the Forest end this week, actually. I've got a bit of corporate. So, if I'd been in Brighton last week in corporate, I wouldn't be worried about sitting on my hands. There wouldn't be anything to do. So I'm hoping that I'm really going to have to, when we're 2-3-0 up.
Yeah. I'm on the fence for draw as well. I don't know what. I'd love a clean sheet. I wouldn't say no to a 0-0. I would like to see us stop conceding some goals. I'd love to have a nice clean sheet there. I think if you stop conceding goals, you pick up points, and that's important. But some people saying like hard work doesn't get you points either. But we can't just roll over every week and get our belly tickled and accept our fate 10 games into a season. So you've got to do something. There has to be some way. As I said, the breakdown will be out on Saturday, and in the breakdown, I've gone, there's a way of fixing this, and I've given my opinion on what I think it is, and I've dug the tactics boards out to go through it. Jim's saying 2-0 Forest, that's a 2-0 Forest win. They're the home side, and Rich saying 2-1 win. I hope that's Leeds. But let's hope they just sort it out. Just fix it, sort it out, get the result. Everyone goes into the international break happy. You got 2 weeks then to work on some stuff. And then, my Jesus, you've got a hell of a run of games. You've got Villa, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool. Let's get something before then. Lads, thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks to everybody in the chat. As I always say, agree or disagree. It's good to have the debate and the chat. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. I'm back in the morning for the news. I'll talk to you then. See you later. Bye.